First things first, who are you, what's your role, and where do you work?
My name is Reid Vandewiele. My role is product lead at StormForge by CloudBolt.
What are 3 emerging Kubernetes tools that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so we just talked about this last November, actually, and for me, not a lot has actually changed. I'm just I'll highlight the 2 I said last time. I'm still paying attention to dynamic resource allocation, especially now this GA, and also still paying attention to in-place pod resizing, especially because now that we're starting to incorporate it into our own tools, I'm still learning a lot more about it and just kind of where it works and doesn't work. At the risk of being saying the same thing everybody else is, we're also, I'm just paying attention to the kind of, how is MCP going to be standardized into Kubernetes? Because all of my tools now want to interact with it directly and not just, me doing it for them.
Our podcast guest, Fernando, argues that Kubernetes never delivered on its promise of reducing infrastructure costs through bin packing. Instead, he sees standardization and extensibility as the real advantages. Has your experience matched this?
In terms of, is the real benefit the standardization kind of the platform? Absolutely. So because we work with a tool that is designed to provide a specific benefit across anything that can be Kubernetes, whether it's on one of the big 3 clouds or a smaller cloud or on-prem, just focusing on the standardization has allowed us to deliver a specific benefit to anybody who's using Kubernetes as a spec. So in that sense, we have seen that. We are a bin packing kind of optimization tool, so I don't know that we're not seeing the benefit on that side, but the standardization is absolutely where we see the most of the value.
Fernando also describes discovering that his GKE Autopilot proof of concept was costing close to $1,000 a month due to balloon pods, minimum CPU to memory ratios, and unexpected metrics charges. How do you handle cost visibility in managed Kubernetes?
Yeah, I'm going to say something about Autopilot specifically first. So Autopilot's interesting because it basically forces you into guaranteed quality of service for every workload, which is naturally going to balloon costs. Before we even get into visibility, if you're trying to optimize costs in Kubernetes, guaranteed quality of service is not the way to do it because you're disallowing yourself from doing any over provisioning at all, which is where you get cost management from, is mostly kind of shared resourcing. But in terms of how do we manage that, we mostly don't look at it because we run and build a tool that tries to automatically make sure you're optimized to begin with. And from that standpoint, it's usually not something we're paying a lot of attention to. That said, years ago, we were partnered with KubeCost. These days, we actually we're trying to provide a similar solution ourselves for understanding the actual costs going into these things, but I would say it's largely it's kind of an open problem still.
Alessandro thinks you should check the CNCF landscape before building custom tools to stand on the shoulders of giants. How do you approach the build versus buy decision in Kubernetes?
We're an organization that focuses heavily on one specific complex problem in Kubernetes. As such, we're very acutely aware of the fact that we are not the experts in everything that's out there. And especially with the CNCF landscape being as diverse and rich as it is, we always tend to try and find something that somebody else has done rather than build it ourselves. We run into a lot of people who, when you first approach a problem, especially in Kubernetes, they often seem tractable, but this is one of those complex systems where it's amazing how deep these things can go, and you won't know until you try. But our philosophy has generally been, if there's a tool out there that does it well, especially if it's open source, you can contribute back to it. It works way better to stand on the shoulders of people who have kind of gone before and people who are actively maintaining and moving it than to try and do it in-house. If the problem is small enough and specific enough, I imagine there are use cases where it makes sense, but we tend to try and reuse.
Kubernetes turned 10 years old almost 2 years ago. What should we expect in the next 10 years?
Candidly, especially with all the changes that have gone into the last year with regards to these new and emerging technologies, I truly can't tell you what I think is going to happen in 10. That is such a massive time frame and time scale that I think it's almost like writing science fiction to try and guess that right now.
What's next for you?
For me, so I think I mentioned earlier that we're a company focused on a very specific complex problem. Honestly, what's immediately next for me is digging even deeper into our core competencies. And so learning more about exactly how we can leverage those new features coming out like DRA and like in-place pod auto resizing to do what we do better.
How can people get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me if you don't already have a contact. I don't pay attention to a lot of other social media.